Well, I am okay. It's very hard for me to answer that. I feel I'm better than I've been, but as far as functioning like things like that, but I'm very much looking at myself. It can be hard to see all those thoughts of blaming and judgments and things that is projected outwards to others and seeing it and then kind of wanting it to go away, but I guess I'm leaning into that thing that it's not about making it go away. It's about, and maybe it's not even, also the idea that, it's not maybe possible to get the thoughts. It is not possible to get the thoughts and emotions away, but to just, yeah, moving from that habit of wanting it to go away because it's painful, and then to seeing what it is, what is this, under to investigate or to sink into. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
had a funny,
yeah,
I wanted to tell a funny dream I had yesterday. It was like I was half awake in sleep and waking up, and I saw my thoughts saying, "Okay, I'm going to get up now," and nothing happened. And then the thought said, "Well, I'm going to move my leg. I'm going to get my leg up now." And I could see that thought. There was an identification of believing that thought was the body or the leg, you could say, or having control, but nothing happened. And then I saw the thoughts were like saying things like this about getting up, moving the hand. And they were kind of the thoughts themselves were identified not with the leg, but with the idea of the leg, but nothing happened. And then I could see they are like chatting about this, and then kind of like little kids. And then I started laughing because they felt very, suddenly the thoughts, like they felt very
yep,
powerless, but they still were doing it. And it was a weird
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
weird thing looking at it.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of the other way around to a lot of things that people experience. Um, is usually that they'll see their legs moving and then recognize that they're doing it by themselves. So
Yeah.
but that's the same thing. You achieve this recognition that your thoughts are separate from what actually happens.
Yeah. And
That
I
was a
guess
good one, yeah. Especially seeing it happen.
and that's what I'm trying to bring into this pain of seeing my judgmental projections and wanting it to go away. That
Yeah,
want
look,
to
look,
more like
wanting it to
go.
go away is just so normal. I mean, that's what you spend a lifetime learning to do. To some
Yeah.
success or not, but regardless, that's what everybody does. So to
Yeah.
to recognize it as an opportunity and turn it around and go, this is trying to tell me something. That's good value if you can do it. But do be relaxed about it. If you put effort into it, that's the same as trying to run away from it.
Yeah, it's the same that when I project before, or also now when you project and you saying, okay, this other person, they're doing something wrong, they shouldn't do this, and you get this, well, anger or these painful feelings towards someone else, and then when I start reflecting on myself, it's the same painful feelings towards my own, thoughts.
Yes.
I want
Yeah,
that
yeah.
to go away, so it's kind of the same pain in a way
Yep, yep.
that you have to be with that. And then yeah, so that's I guess that's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah. So the big thing is to recognize that whatever turns up, good, bad, or otherwise, whatever turns up is useful. And it also is just what it is. So once you recognize what's turned up, there's no point in thinking you wish it didn't happen because it's already done.
Yeah, and when I see the thoughts of, I wish it, and then it's like looping, right? So if I see that thing, I wish it was gone, and then I see the thought, well, I wish that we I wish that thought,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it can
yeah.
go into loop.
Yeah,
But I guess it's like the dream thing to see that the thoughts will chatter away. It's not really controllable. They will do what, but there is possibility
absolutely, absolutely.
to see something deeper with
Yep.
it.
So here's a trick you can do. When you so you're already doing it, but you're just stopping beforehand. So when you see that you have that thought that you don't want that thought, and then you have the thought that you don't want that thought, if you do it again, by the time you do it 3 times, you crack up laughing, and
Yeah,
that ends it. That takes you out of the thought because you
yeah,
can say, "I don't want to have a judgment. Hang on, I just judged that I had a judgment. Now I don't want
mm,
to have that judgment about the judgment."
mm,
And then you can go
yeah,
further. If you're still not cracking up, you can go, "Well, hang on, I just had a judgment about the judgment about the original thing," and it just gets
yeah,
crazy. It's got to start laughing because it's just you could go on forever if
yeah,
if you take it seriously. Yeah.
yeah. And it's as more I look at it, I can see the immense, this thing about seeing the world through our thoughts, how, how much it is, and how actually how painful it is. And I went like a layer deeper, I think, because I saw this thing about every experience. It doesn't matter if it's my thoughts or people or seeing or whatever experience, that tendency to object is like an objectification. That's not me. And then there's something you feel is me, which is like everything is not me in a way, in experience sometimes. And the pain of or it's like a not very but like a fog of just that constant doing that. It was like a feeling of being tired, or that game of like everything is objectified when you look at something, even your thoughts, even the most intimate thing I can look at, it can turn into an objectification.
Yeah.
Yeah, just feeling the
So
tiredness
are
of
you
that or
saying that
something.
that objectification exhausts you when that happens? You get tired from it?
Well, when I look at it, I get sad because I'm looking at my life, kind of just the immensity of it, how much it is. And it's like feeling the sad feeling, remembering when it wasn't so much like that as a kid. And I guess feeling sad a little and helpless, sad, helpless or something, or it's so big, it's gotten so big.
Mm. Well, that's what happens
Just
over a lifetime, isn't it? It grows. The escapism grows.
yeah, the disconnection, it feels so big, like this. In this childhood is like innocent maybe and little, but then you're still playing, and but then it gets layer after layer, and in the like where I'm at now is like everything can be objectified and distanced, and it's like I guess it's like you fall into a maze, and after a while you realize it's so huge, and so I guess I can feel sad and hopeless. But then again, when I suddenly see the thoughts like I did with the dream, you can feel like, well, yeah, it's actually not it's not hopeless. It is
Mm.
yeah. So there's a moving back and forward between these things.
Yep. When you accept that whatever has turned up is just
Yeah,
what's turned up, that changes the next thing.
yeah,
If it's
yeah.
really,
Because
that's what's turned up. It feels really big.
yeah,
When you
and that
when you tell yourself stories about the immensity of it,
yeah,
it's a reaction too.
yeah, and it's like another way of well, if you say that it's all my fault, and you blame yourself, and I should have, I'm all, you kind of making yourself all powerful, or myself, like this is all my fault. That's like making myself all more powerful and making that that distancing or that separation, that's like just a stronger version of it. So I guess seeing how everything is happening without me controlling it is, it's like with a dream, laughing at that, it's kind of dissolving some layers and see, okay,
Yeah,
it's not quite how it was.
yeah. And you're going
Yeah,
to get presented with a lot of shit, you know, a lot of stuff will come up and it'll be confusing and chaotic and all that kind of stuff until it isn't. So
yeah,
everything is like a test. You know, the test is for you to recognize that it's just happening. So when it
yeah,
is objectified, how can anything be your fault? You can describe it as seeming to come from you, but in fact it's a result of a whole lot of conditions, and you're only some of those conditions.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like seeing the thoughts were kind of helpless to move the body, and those thoughts were, yeah, like they weren't, there wasn't their fault that they couldn't move the body. I saw those little thoughts chattering like little kids up there, and
Yeah,
and then it was they were feeling a little hopelessness or desperation. But when I laughed, I could see it wasn't. I mean, it's not the thought's fault they can't move the body.
it's not the false job to move the body either.
No, no,
Yeah, often they'll take ownership of the movement of the
yeah,
body. They'll say it's their that they've done it, but it's
yeah,
their job. Their thoughts are just thoughts.
yeah. They're very mysterious about because they're like reflections of things, like distorted reflections, and at this. And the identification or the pain is like in them, but also it's possible to see them for it's it is a mysterious investigation for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not possible to say this is how it is, but you see, I guess I see more of things, but yeah,
A good analogy is to see the thoughts, to have the same relationship to your thoughts as you have to the breeze. When you go outside and the air's moving and there's a little bit of a breeze, you can't control it. You can experience it and you can have a reaction to it, but it's just there or not. Sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's cold. You know,
Mhm.
it can be all sorts of, and it's a great analogy for your thoughts. And you have as much control over your thoughts as you do over the breeze. And they mean as much as the breeze means, which is nothing. It's
Yeah,
just a breeze. You know,
yeah,
sometimes you'll put on a coat if the breeze is really strong, and sometimes you'll take your shirt off if it's really warm. You know, it just depends. It's just the breeze, and your thoughts are like that.
yeah, yeah,
It's just an interesting movie that you're watching at the moment. And sometimes it's a comedy, and sometimes it's a thriller, and sometimes it's a drama. But that's all it is. It's just a movie that you're watching.
yeah. And it's accompanied by now, like, it's new for me these last years, but it's very strong sensations
Yes.
in the body. And I guess that was been hard, but it's also a help, I would say, that I can, since they're so strong and so in the face,
Yes.
I can easily go into that if like the body's cramping up or
Yep.
doing things. I mean, it's very concrete in a way. It's not so easy to escape it.
Yes. No, that's
So
good.
yeah, so I can use that as a go-to thoughts, and it's easier to just stay in the body.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, regardless of what your thoughts are doing and whether you're giving your full attention to your thoughts, you're still in the body. It's just a
yeah,
case of shifting your focus. And sometimes your thoughts demand the focus, and sometimes your body demands the focus.
yeah,
The thing that I'm trying to get across to you that I think is I think you've probably got some of it anyway, is that there's nothing to fight. You just relax and go with whatever turns up, and it will be valuable. It's the resistance
Yeah.
to it that changes what you experience to something else.
Mhm.
And when you do go with it, you become aware of it in a different way, and that also changes it, and usually to something more pleasant. But it certainly can be chaotic and overwhelming sometimes too. And those times, usually you don't have awareness of what's going on until afterwards, until things have quietened down a bit, and then it'll come to you what was happening. So if it's really busy and really got your attention and you're really involved in it, you won't realize it at the time, but later on you will.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the sooner you'll become aware of what's going on. So
Yeah.
it's a good idea to set an alarm that well, alarm's not the right word, but set a some kind of a trigger that says the moment you experience an unpleasant sensation, that's telling you that there's something there to look at.
Yeah. Mm.
Have you been, Scott?
Doing well. Feel great.
So then why are you here?
Habit. And there's always, who knows, maybe it'll get better.
You're feeling great, but it could be better, eh?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
have no idea. Like I really don't have any worries. Like I figure I have this feeling lately, like if I were to open my mouth, the first sound is a lie. Not a lie, but like meaningless bullshit. I don't know. I'm just trying not to get a bite of something. You know what I mean? And pretty easy. I'm just relaxing, doing my side gig, watching some videos, and coming to this meeting.
Great. Yeah,
Seems to be working really well. So
yeah. There's always more to pick up, isn't there? Yeah.
yeah, little side things. Like right now, I'm just concentrating on the just reminding myself how this is exactly how it should be. Can't be any other way. And if I catch myself judging somebody, I just turn it right back into me. And if I feel a disturbance, I look straight to the body, try to get out of the habit of, parsing it out in thought and go straight to the body and see what's really there. And I don't know. Seems like everything's working well so far.
Great. So you're not working at anything in particular, just being fairly relaxed about what turns up.
Just those things that I mentioned. I just use those. I guess you could call it a procedure. So it's like two or three procedures I have. I guess three procedures basically. I try to not try. I incorporate occasionally throughout the day, and try not to like I'm watching some of Todd's Todd's videos and just picking things up along the way, but not like grabbing like, oh, that's it. Like,
Yep. Yeah, good.
I know that feeling now when I read a description or something of a shift or something like that, or it's usually when I get pulled back into Christiane's like world a little bit, which hasn't happened. I kind of have. It was just like a accident that happened last time, But I don't subject myself to it on purpose. But now it's fine. Like when I do feel the pull, I see like, oh yeah, I'm susceptible to seeing like a description of something.
Yeah.
Somebody describes their experience. I'm susceptible to that for sure. But I think it's weakening.
Yep, good one. I read a thing a couple of days ago that was rather interesting, and it was titled "The Information Obesity Crisis." Right? And this article was a psychological thing that where they described that if you get a certain kind of information, your brain gives you a dopamine hit. So it's a little bit like when you get sugar or something like that. You get that thing. So information, if it seems like it's going to be useful, will give us a little bit of a high. We'll feel
it.
Yeah. It was interesting.
But along with that high comes this. It's just like drugs. It's like along with the high comes that like afterwards. It's like a discomfort, clamp down, like a want. It comes
missing. Yeah,
come together. You can't have one without the other. Seems like.
Yeah.
Like dualism. But it appears to be anyway. But.
Yeah.
So, you got room for me over there in Australia? I might have to move out of here.
Yeah, I expect there'll be a bit of an exodus to Canada or something. Yeah.
I had to think Robert. I think it was Robert De Niro, maybe. Yeah, I think it was him. Or I don't remember which one, him or the other guy. Like, but anyway, he's sold his watch and he's like gonna move out of the country. He's not needed here anymore, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Lately, I've been thinking. A lot of good stuff can come out of this.
Yeah, maybe it's just what America needs to. Maybe they need a fucking smack in the face or something. I don't know, but maybe we do.
A lot of people might wake up. You never know. Yeah.
I was flabbergasted. I didn't watch the election, but I was flabbergasted when I saw what happened. I was like, I don't believe it. This can't be true. There's that much sickness,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yet there isn't sickness, right? Like, it's just my opinion. But it sure looks like sickness.
Yep. Yeah, well, I've had a couple of experiences lately that have been rather good about that kind of thing. Not that necessarily that, but, one of them was I read an article about the Israeli-Palestinian history of things, and it opened my eyes a little bit, and I recognised how I was being a bit one-sided about my ideas on it, and so that was good. And I'm fairly active in imagining good things that can come out of this seeming disaster. And I can imagine quite a lot of good things coming out of it. A lot of them by accident more than by intention, or right things for the wrong reason, kind of thing. So it's way more complex than than just right or wrong or good or bad or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, recognizing my own inclination to bias has been really good. It's been a bit of a wake-up call to see how I've been a bit one-sided about things, thinking that I know right, I know how it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
There's I've kind of like pretty much released almost everything except for those particular things that could affect my financial future. Like if there's something that I can connect to, like, okay, it's gonna it might affect this body, then it's important. The other
Mm.
stuff I've kind of like, oh yeah, like, okay, so maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know, whatever. I don't want to see anybody get hurt or be. I just don't think that really needs to happen. But so maybe I'm wrong anyway, but I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? That's right. Yeah, yeah. How
It
about
actually has been.
go?
I'm almost done. I just wanted to say that, like, it's actually been a surprise, really, because I expected a lot more um, pain. I guess that's the word. I expected a lot more pain. Anyway, I was pleasantly surprised that it didn't seem to be as bad of a you know experience as I thought it might be.
One thing for certain is that we live in interesting times.
Yeah.
It's a curse.
Or it's a gift.
It's a whole lot of things. Yeah.
In Croatian, it's proverb. Proverb as a curse. Let God you live in interesting times. For you to live in interesting times.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the really interesting things is that we have no idea what's going to happen. It's like what he says will happen doesn't mean anything about what will actually happen.
No.
So there's no predictability. We all have to sit back and wait.
It's a mystery. It's like a mystery novel. Like, if you could love it if you could love it if you weren't attached to it. You could just, like, look at that, look at that, look at that.
Mm.
That's how I, like, picture, handling the next 4 years. Just look what happened. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's only 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to have this idea that a good democracy would be one where, and I think there are some countries that do it, where if enough people mid-term say they don't like what's going on, they can have another election instead of waiting the full term.
They can't get anything done in this country anyway because everything's so 50-50 and they need 60% to do anything. We can't get anything done anyway. Like, chopping a term in half would probably just make us stop, I think. I don't think we'd ever get anything done. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's the same here in Australia. You know, I think what kind of a democracy is it when every single election it goes 49% one side, 51% the other side, and next time it reverses, but it's always around that, you know. I think this is crazy. What we're doing is dividing the country in half. This is just stupid.
I don't even understand how that happens. You have a two-party system also?
Absolutely, yep.
It's how could it be that close? I don't understand, especially when it's like night and day, at least here. You know, the left and the right are like so far apart. It's not even funny, you know, because they're just fighting. They don't really care if the other side's doing anything good. They just don't want the other side to do anything. Anything they do is bad, you know. It's just they're trying to shoot each other up instead of trying to do something good for the people, you know.
Yeah, and that's what we get. The opposition party, the one that's not in power, they go no, 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 no for 4 years. You know, well, 3 years in our case, I think. Yeah, I think it is. And then the other one will get into the opposition. They'll do the same thing. No, 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 no. You know, so it's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, there's no room for growth or anything. It's just crazy. It was like, I don't know how. I have no suggestions. Like, I don't know what to. Like, if I had any power at all, or if I had any influence on the world, I still wouldn't know what to, you know.
Yeah.
What to offer. Like, I have no solution. So, I guess the solution is watch the show.
Maybe there's no such thing as a solution. Maybe it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Always, you know. Yeah. But somehow it's a good reflection of our own personal world. You know, that we live in times like this, and we in ourselves can be quite divided about things. We want and we don't want at the same time, or we don't want and we want at the same time.
You're saying we're individually divided? Is that what you're saying? Like, we also have our division
Yeah,
person?
absolutely. Yeah.
That makes sense. Did you used to do some therapy? Like, are you a therapist in your past life or anything? I thought
I did hypnotherapy for 5 years at one stage, a long time ago, and I have dabbled in a lot. But I know I don't have any qualifications as far as a therapist is concerned. I went to university and did psychology, but I never finished. I bombed out. Life interrupted that one. So no, I didn't.
Do you know much about like IFS, like internal family systems, and like maybe parts therapy? I think it's called, maybe part of IFS, maybe.
I don't really know. I know of it, and I have a little bit of what people tell me about it, essentially, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with it intimately. Yet some of the stuff that seems to me to be valuable probably fits into some of those things, but it's just accidental rather than the result of a study or anything.
I'm on Medicare, and I have the ability to get therapy for pretty cheap. I have time, and I don't know. I was considering just playing with it a little bit, and I don't know. Parts therapy seems like it from the description I got, seems like it kind of fits in well with our path, you know.
Yep. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we do carry with us. One way to put it is that we carry with us stuff from various stages of our life, and that they don't necessarily grow up. You know, they kind of get frozen in time, but we still respond to them. You know, so I do see that. Yeah, we all have a child in us, and well, more than a child. It's just one way to put it, but we do have a lot of childish views of things from various stages in our life that kind of get frozen because we don't evolve from them necessarily, if they're painful in particular, because we tend to avoid them. And so the consequence there is that they become subconscious, or they become body memory, body reactions, whatever. Yeah. So it certainly does make sense. The thing with a lot of those therapies to watch is that you don't become dependent and you don't keep them. It's like you use a thorn to extract a thorn. Well, when the thorn is out, you throw both of them away. You don't keep them. And a lot of those kind of therapies people tend to keep. They live it all the time and they keep it. They don't ever grow through it or grow out of it.
I was thinking that I might benefit from, exploring some of those parts of some of those frozen, because there's so many blind spots when you're looking back into the past. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, here's the thing. You say you're good. If you're good, is there an inclination to say, well, I want more, I want to be even better than good?
I guess there is an inclination for that. I don't know. I just thought, I guess the thought process was just, yeah, I guess it is. It's associated with wanting more. I think it is. Yeah. Now that I think about it, it is. Yeah.
Yep.
It's associated with more.
Right. So it might seem like more, but it's still going to be based on a lack. Somewhere down there will be a feeling that something is missing or something is not complete. If you really had a full belly, you don't even desire dessert.
Okay, so I'm like, I wonder if I'm thinking wrong. So I'm like kind of in a spot where I feel like I just feel like I kind of like doing this. I feel good when I do it, and I'm just gonna kind of right now the way I feel about it, I'm just gonna come to meetings and I'm not gonna beat myself in the head and not gonna make goals how much effort I'm gonna put into it or anything. But I kind of figure I'll be doing this until I stop breathing. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, I get that.
Just the most positive thing that's ever, happened in my life, really.
Right. It is, I do see it that way. I do see it as an endless thing, I expect that I'll be doing it till the day I die too. But it's not like I need to chase anything. I just have to go do normal things. I just have to eat and shit and get dressed and shower, and in the middle of all of that, stuff will show itself. And if it shows itself, then I go, oh, okay, there's something to look at. And like I was saying earlier about that realization I had about my bias in things, that was something that popped up recently, and it was pretty rewarding to see that I was biased about things. So, but the difference is, and this is a huge thing, the difference is, are we seeking or are we exploring? Now, if we're seeking, we're looking for something that's not here now, so it's in the future. If we're exploring, we're just standing on a hilltop, looking around and seeing what's going to pop up, with the expectation that things will pop up if they're there.
So it feels like exploring, but I can fool myself pretty easily. Because
Well,
I really didn't have any expectations. I just thought, well, I'll try it and see if it illuminates some of the things
yeah, yeah.
I am looking at or we are looking at.
Yeah, I don't see any problems at all with that. I mean, that's the thing. If the idea of getting some of that therapy or some of that stuff, if it pops up in front of you, then the fact that it's popped up tells you something, and it may well be that it's appropriate for you to explore that. Because that's the way I see things. Life offers you direction. I don't. You do what life offers.
Right. I mean, and there is a significant difference between this and say how I like chomped into LU. Like I don't really see like LU. I saw, oh my God, look at this. I'm gonna, it was just so solid and black and white,
Yep.
and I, just this is totally different. I'm like not sure I really want to do it. Like I might do it, I might not do it. I've taken some action to go towards it, but I'm not thinking about it really. I just have to go look at my emails and see if I can.
That's perfect.
Anyway,
So you fall into it or not. That's the way it works.
that's how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. If it comes up, I'll do it. If not, I won't worry about it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, a classic happened to me today, and this is a good example of this kind of thing. I don't even know what I was looking at. I was looking at something on my computer, and I must have accidentally clicked somewhere on the screen, because next thing up popped this other thing and it turned out to be a newsletter I get called The Conversation. So it's like a newspaper, but it's written by university academics rather than reporters. And I didn't mean to do it. I just accidentally touched something, and there it was. And there's this article, and I go, okay, if that's happened, I'll read it. I'll read the article. I don't even remember what it was now, but it was interesting. I remember being interested in it. But so that's how life does these things. Things like, it's almost like everything that is an accident. It's just there in front of you. If my wife walks in and says, "Time to walk the dog," well, okay, it's time to walk the dog.
That is a really good framework. I like it. Feels great. I'm going to experiment with that.
It's a good one, because it's a version of surrender, of acceptance.
Yeah. It's perfect. I'll see if I can fit that in.
And the experience here is, it's fantastic. It's great. It really takes away the need to make decisions about things. And so life is so much lighter without having to plan and do things. It's like if the phone rings, you answer it. And if somebody at the other end says, you want to go and have a meal, or you want to go and have a beer, or whatever, you just do it, because there it is.
I have, because fears has always been such a big part of my life. I do these. This is from psychology, but the rules for living, they call it, like DBT. It's like always, like a negative thing happens, I analyze how to make sure that never happens again, put a rule in place. Before you know it, I can't even move because I got so many rules. I can't even move. And I'm scared that anything's going to happen.
Exhausted as
Anything
well.
will break a rule. So it helps with that too. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, we don't need to make rules. But I mean, it seems like it's part of learning in the beginning. And then after a while, you realize, oh, Jesus, I've just painted myself into a corner. I can't even go out into the world. Like,
yeah. Well, what I say is, if you find yourself in a corner, get rid of the cobwebs and enjoy
it. Everything's an accident. I like it. I still write a couple things down every once in a while. I'll write a little nugget down, just put it over there, and then every couple of weeks or something, I pick them up and I look at them. I'm like, should I bother with this? Should I bother with this? Sometimes I throw them away. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, there's a nugget.
Yep. Yeah, well, it's like sometimes you find a pen in your hand and you're writing something down, and then sometimes you find a pad with a note on it and you read it. You know, yeah, good stuff. We are so inculcated in planning and evaluating things all the time that it's just to think about it is exhausting.
It's like, it seems like school and preschool is, they start like right away with it. But you know how like Pernella, she says like you can't, like, you have to develop the sense of self first before you can let go of it. And they're basically saying you just got to let kids develop that sense of self before, so that they can have a healthy sense of self before they let go of it. But I just look at, like, when you're looking at how I mean, at least in America, the way they do the schools and how they teach, and it's almost like they're promoting this, way we are.
Absolutely, they are the world over. That one, yeah, for sure.
I feel like there's something, that, not that it matters to me, right? I'm way beyond that age group, but it
Maybe
just
not.
seems like, well,
Maybe
I'm
not.
not going to have any more kids, I can tell you that. But it just seems like there'd be something that they could do to try, teach them how to do the analyzing and, all this
Yep.
stuff, and then
Absolutely, yeah.
add, like, but there's also this way to look at it, at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
give them like some, like, a little, like, oh, there's a hole here. Maybe everything isn't exactly like we're saying. You might want to try this too, or something. You know what I mean? Just
Absolutely, yep, yep. Mindfulness in schools, I think, would be a huge thing, and if we did that, the world over, this was a big soapbox of mine at one stage, and I made websites and did all sorts of things to try and promote mindfulness in schools. And the idea is you start with kindergarten and you teach them about thoughts. You teach them about to watch their thoughts and recognise what they really are, so to speak. And by the time those kids get to be running the country, we've got sensible things happening. In like 25 years or 30 years is nothing. Like I've seen a couple of those go by, and we're still doing the same stupid stuff that we did when I was a kid. It hasn't changed like that, But the reality is that's not going to happen. I did hear. Here's a good one. I did hear that the moment Trump won the election, down in some of the southern states, they were giving Trump Bibles to every kid in the school. They don't get free lunch. They don't get anything that's of use to them, but they got Bibles. God, can't believe it. Yeah.
I don't want to even start talking about that.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a crazy thing, but the reality is that it is the way it is, and that's not going to happen. We're not teaching our kids smart things. We're teaching our kids that if they're intellectual, then that's good, and if they're not intellectual, then that's bad. And so again, we're dividing the country, beginning to divide the country in kindergarten.
Yeah.
The ones that are going to go to university, they're on that side of the table. The ones that don't make it, they're on that side. Some of them will become tradespeople, and some will become unemployed, whatever. Yeah. So it's already happening. Yeah. So yeah. So we've just got to hope that a lot of those kids have got the weird gene, and they recognise and they have what it takes to rebel. But who knows? Yeah.
I know America's not ready for it yet, so we have no power or control, so I guess it's a moot point, I guess.
But there is a reality that it's hard to put into context, but there is a lot more of this stuff going on in the world than there ever was in history in the past. So hopefully it brings about some sensibility. But maybe maybe as an old man, maybe I won't live long enough to see it really making much of a difference. But it's all we can only do it with ourselves, and hopefully that rubs off on people around us.
Yeah.
So how have you been going, Maya?
Well, I thought after you talking to Scott, I don't have anything else to say. It applies so much. I mean, the American politics, I'm in Europe. I shouldn't care, but I was so upset.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look what's happening in Georgia now. Look what's happening all over the world. Yeah.
I have a friend who was an observer at the elections in Georgia. I have to ask her how did she observe there? What did they do? I don't know. I mean, well, I always think we hit the bottom now. We hit the bottom. It looks so bad. It looks so bad. But there's always a basement to the bottom, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we can hope that this is the bottom arc of the pendulum and it'll swing back up from here. But yeah. I
4 years.
Yeah, I can remember in 1979 it was here, and the country seemed to be moving somewhat to the left in Australia, and then 1980 happened and we just got a right-wing government in, and away it went off to the right, and it never ever came back since then. It's always been to the right, and even the people the party who saw themselves as left have had to move to the right to get votes. So now we've got a right-wing party and we've got a centre party, but the only left are seen as radicals. The Greens are seen as crazy people. Yeah, to the point where the opposition, the right-wing party, use it as a political leverage to say that the other party, which is called our Labor Party, they're in cahoots with the Green, and that's an insult to them. They say. And yet the right-wing party are in cahoots with a further right-wing party called the National Party, and that's a coalition, and they only get in because they're a coalition. The Labor are not game to get into a coalition with the Greens because everybody's been educated to think that the Greens are woke. They're now considered to be woke and all of that stuff, Yeah, so it's an insult. Crazy.
When they started using that word woke, I was like, they're trying to insult me by calling me woke? Like, to me, that's a compliment.
Being kind and considerate, it's...
My son asked me what woke meant. Like, he's like, I don't know, I guess he's 35 now. He asked me what do they mean when they're saying woke? I'm like, all I know is what woke means to me, and I would told him, about the awakening, because at some point I think he knew that I was interested in that type thing. And anyway, I was like, I explained to him kind of what I thought it was, but when you ask a person on the right, at least in America, they don't really know what it means. To them, it's just an insult.
And what I've figured out is, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it came to me recently that it means that this is really weird. It means that you're sensitive and humanitarian in your outlook, but that's a bad thing. That's not masculine. I think it's got to be that it's not masculine. I think one of the Trump got a lot of votes is because it was really what we call in Australia really blokey, really masculine, and it's patriarchal. It's aggressive, supposedly manly stuff. Bullshit. Total bullshit.
So it's the same, and it's the right in Australia is the same as like we have. It's kind of like whose thing is bigger than the other person's thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We kind of
exactly. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, yep,
puff
yep,
ourselves up. That's what the right is. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Same here.
So we don't want to know
It's got,
about being sensitive because that's not manly. That's womanly to be sensitive. That's crazy, isn't it?
yeah.
And I have the same thing running for the last 35 years. I mean, I'm from the Balkans. I've seen the war, and we expected it to be better after the war. It never got better. We just got the same thing. We have what you have now. You said 79 in Australia. What you have now in the US, we've had it in the Balkans since the 90s, since the war. The
Yeah.
same madness. No,
That's not a good
what?
sign.
No. And I mean, I'm 54 now. I'll be 55. My life went away first with the war when I was 20, and then 5 years of war, and then after that, it never got better. I mean, so we
So
were
is there
50.
anything wrong? I'm sorry. Is there
Yeah,
anything
just
wrong with just like withdrawing from politics completely? Because to me, it looks like beating a dead horse at this point. Like, why should I ruin my life, the rest of my few years I got left by worrying about politics, or even thinking about it?
well,
It's an interesting
my
one.
husband. My husband and I, we decided to emigrate at 50. We were almost 50 when we decided to go to the UK. People don't emigrate at 50. I mean, you really have to be very tired of something to go somewhere at 50. You're ready to go in retirement at that point, not go to
Yeah.
work somewhere else.
Start a new life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was very, very political. The good thing I have to report, I see myself really dropping it now. But we said if we go abroad, which it didn't happen to me, I still go to work to Croatia. Uh, we said it's easier. Don't get me wrong. Now it will be a little bit harsh. When you're abroad, there are always some weird people everywhere now. You cannot run away from them. But we said it's easier to to put up with foreign Talibans because you don't understand them. Your home Talibans, you understand them very well and they're annoying. You just don't feel it this way. So it's easier abroad to be abroad, not to understand anything anymore.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I think the trick with politics is it is a system that we can't escape. So if we just like when I was young and I could vote, like say up to 20, I don't know, 23 or 4, I suppose, I just refused to vote. I'd take the fine rather than vote because we have compulsory voting in Australia. And
Wow.
because I said to myself, there's no point. You give me a choice of shit or shit. There's no good ones to choose from. So why vote? Now I recognise that the people who are really, especially the right wing people, they are emotional, and they will vote. And so if all the good people don't vote, then we're going to put them in power every single time. But it's not appropriate to get emotional about the results. We just have to live with whatever the results are. But we should vote. Yeah.
yeah, this is what I do. So I really a year or so, I think I was very political, really very political. I dropped it now mostly.
Yes.
I I just see I will have to accept what comes out, and there's no way to change it. People have to learn from what they vote for,
Yes. Yep.
and this is it. So this is my politics now. I yes, I was upset by the results in the US, but not as I would have been otherwise. I'm just starting to see I infected my daughter. She's 18 and she's very political now. She was so upset.
Mm.
But okay, she will come to her senses someday also.
Actually, I wanted to ask something exactly about this subject because hypothetically, I was just wondering, like, is it really a contradiction if someone is into non-duality and is active politically? I mean, of course, I understand like all those things about ideologies and beliefs and stuff like that and opinions. That's something we can see through, but that doesn't mean that I can't be active in a way. I mean, I don't have to, yeah, it's difficult because, yeah, I noticed that, for example, for me as a German person, it's very difficult to say like, ah, well, let it just happen, what is happening or something, because I was trained to always be vigilant and critical towards things that are happening in my country. And now, for example, the coalition broke down and there are new elections, and I guess that the Conservative Party will win the votes, and they have moved further to the right as well. And they are talking, yeah, actually, the comments that they do are like really anti migration and stuff like that. And
that's it.
so
I quit politics. Go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and so the discourse in general is like more left, right side, and for many people in Germany, this feels really like, oh, didn't we have the same situation in the 30s? And of course, maybe that's just a story or interpretation. But at that point, it's like very difficult to say, oh, I'm not interested in politics. You know, like
Yeah.
it's,
Well,
I
do you
can't do that. It's just not possible, although I know that this is just my conditioning. But I was already wondering, like, not, I mean, I was never into political parties, but I was just wondering, like, if um, if it comes worse, and for example, this Conservative Party will have a coalition with the neo-Nazi party, for example, then things will really change in this country. And then maybe there should be some people who still try to do something against it
Yeah.
in some way. And then I'm really thinking about what could I do? What could, in this case? I mean, I know that maybe it won't change anything, but it feels like the right thing to do, or it would make me feel better because then I'm not the same as my grandparents who just shut their mouth, their ears, their eyes, and the Holocaust happened, you know? So I know that this is like, yeah, for people who grew up in a different country than Germany, maybe that's like, ah, come on with this German guilt story, blah, blah, blah.
It's all relevant. It's all relevant. And look, do you choose what you're interested in? Do you, you know, so if you're moved to do something and it happens to be political, that's no different than if you're moved to do something and it happens to be about what to eat, or it happens to be about what to wear. There's no difference, you know. No, there's no contradiction, you know. Holding an ideal is another story, right? But we do have ideals. We do have a view about how.
Yeah, no, it's rather about being inclined to
Yes.
meet people who are against those things happening as well, and see what we can do together, like in a
And
small.
if you find yourself comfortable with them, then you'll you'll gravitate towards them.
Mm.
It's another reality to consider that if you imagine that you can change everything, then you're in fantasy land. You know, it's not going to happen like that. But you can contribute, and if enough people do, then it'll be that way. But if it's going to go to the right, well, it's going to go to the right. If it's going to go, and I would feel sad about that if it happened, but I would accept it, and that's just the way it is. Well, nothing we can do about it as an individual, but there's everything we can do about it ourselves as an individual. So I don't see any conflict. You know, if you happen to get with people, you are attracted or inclined to be with people who are active politically, then you might find yourself being active politically.
Yeah, for example, my sister at the moment is like really radical, and she gets like very emotional about things, but I think she's really suffering as well.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah.
And this is a different story. It's like from her perspective, for example, it's like in Germany at school, you have to learn a lot about the history, about the National Socialism and so on, and like analyzing everything in order to understand how that could ever happen. The purpose is also to develop a critical view of things happening in the own country.
Yep.
And then at the moment, we also have like those radical right party, or this radical right party that wants to negate the history, or like say, it was not all that bad, you know.
Yeah.
And not that many Jews who were killed. Actually, that's all a lie. And it's like very difficult because the government, for example, doesn't really allow people anymore to criticize the Israeli government, which is not the same as the state of Israel. I mean, it's just the government, you know. So when people criticize what is happening in Gaza, they are called anti anti-Semitists, or how do you call that?
Anti-Semitic, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like crazy because there are even like emigre Israeli people in Germany who criticize the government in Israel, and they are called anti-Semitic by the German press or something like that. It's like really absurd. And yeah, whenever my sister starts to get like really upset about that, I do understand her. It's like actually I share her opinion, but on the other hand, I know that this is not within what I can like verify myself. It's all just like information and stories that are brought to me by the media, and who am I to judge that? But it's like also difficult to say, well, what is happening in Gaza, that's just all just a story, you know. So there is evidence.
You recognize when it's a story, when it is an ideal happening.
Yeah.
Your sister takes that story to be real. It's not. That's not to say that it's not real, but it's beside the point. You know, it's a story to her, but she's reacting to it like it's hurting her personally.
And then I asked her once, like, for example, a different subject that she gets like really mad about is like, I guess like you could say Europe colonized the rest of the world, and then now they talk about human rights, but they violate them themselves. So it's like, of course, hypocrisy. But if you get like really upset about that, doesn't this mean that before you had like this naive view of it not being like this, you know? Like, for example, I noticed that I also believed when I was a pupil, for example, at school, that yeah, in Germany we really learn things about our history in order to this not going to happen again and so on. And then I really identified with this idea of, yeah, like to analyze the history, but the reality is that I guess racism and stuff like that is like still an issue in Germany. So it didn't really change anything. It's just like something that is like ordered by the government, and that's the program that people have to do at school. But that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
people look into themselves and detect their own racist view within themselves.
Yep.
And yeah, but I was also kind of, wow, okay, we were trained like all of our lives to open our eyes when there is a genocide happening. And now that there is one happening, you're not allowed to say that because it's Israel.
Mm.
So this is quite absurd. And then I felt also a bit upset to a point where I, yeah, understood, okay, I believed all that, you know, I really believed in having a purpose. And I read recently about the Philippines. And for example, there was the Marcos dictatorship, I think it was in the 80s. And the young generation doesn't know anything about the history of their country. And now they voted for the son of this dictator to be the new president. And
Yep.
actually, in Germany, we had those programs at school, but the young generation is voting for the neo-Nazi party because supposedly they are the lost generation of the the pandemic or something, and
Yeah.
they are,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. I mean, it's all stories, but the thing is, it happens anyway. You know, people vote for this kind of parties anyway, in spite of all the years of learning at school about those
Yep. Yep.
things.
Yep. So you can see, for example, that say somebody like a neo-Nazi person as an extreme over there, they get themselves very excited. They get, you could even say they get high on their idealism about what's going on. And there's your sister on the other extreme getting just as high on her idealism. There's no difference, except only in what they're talking about, but there's no difference in her reaction to it and how she. So maybe this is a big part of that, getting excited and getting the feeling good about that. So,
Yeah, and the
yeah,
thing
mate.
is that she gets like really upset if I just, for example, once my mom said, yeah, well, I don't know if it's like that. And she only said, I don't have any information about that. I can't judge about that. And then my sister, with her bubble of reality, she heard it like, you are saying that I'm inventing things and I'm a liar or something like that. So this is getting like, we have like this group chat at WhatsApp, and she's posting and posting and posting things and expecting us to react, and I don't react, and it's sometimes like, when we meet, or somehow the relationship between my mom and my sister got like really good after many years of I don't know, awful situations, but now it's like a really good contact, relaxed and friendly. But there is always this subject, and yeah, um, then I was just wondering, like, I don't dare to tell her, but the interesting thing is, why is she focusing so much on exactly this subject? Because there are actually a lot of awful things happening on the
Yeah,
planet.
yeah,
Let's say,
exactly.
for example, in Sudan, there are like millions of people dying from hunger in refugee camps, for
The short
example.
answer is it makes her feel good.
Yeah, so it's yeah, and then I also understand that this like actually she yeah um her boyfriend quit the relationship, and she can't accept that. So she's still thinking that he still loves her, and then they are trying to be friends, and then he kisses her again, and then she thinks that they are together again. And okay, I'm not interfering in that, because I'm just listening to
Yeah,
her
you
when
can
she
only
tells
watch.
me about it,
Yeah,
not judge me.
yeah.
But it's like kind of obvious to me that yeah, she's avoiding like to look inside this subject. And then, for example, they plan to do a trip together, and he said, "No, I'm not going with you." So everything was planned, and now he's not going with her. And then I said, "Why don't you go alone?" And then she said, "No, yeah, doing those things alone doesn't have the same worth as doing it with him." And then I just asked her, like, are you really sure about that? Um, but yeah, for her, it's like she would never do that alone. And
Mm.
I think that's the subject that she's diverting from by this.
Could
I
well be.
mean, that's only my
Yeah.
interpretation and my story, but um, the same with my mom, for example. She has like several contacts that are actually, yeah, she's always complaining about how stupid those people are, or what they say, or what they do, and how they behave. And that's like not acceptable. And then I say, yeah, but what if you tell me about how awful those people are? Why do you give them your time and energy? And yeah, she just doesn't want to see that. I think it's also about diverting from
Yeah, yeah.
other
You
things.
can't you
Like,
can't tell people. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's difficult for me sometimes to take this serious and listen to it and
Yeah,
never say anything,
yeah.
because
They get lost in it. Yeah, yeah. Of
yeah, because they're suffering as well from that. It's not
course.
just
Yeah,
like
yeah. So the difficult thing is for you just to watch it, not and not
yeah.
not be involved. Yeah, yeah. You wanted to say something, Maya.
Yes, about the stories, it just occurred to me one thing. When Leonard was talking about wanting to act, wanting to be active, to do something. Well, I have this experience being in the war. I wasn't personally affected, so it was also a story for me. But I remember uh, it was bad in Croatia, and we were the center of our story. There were people who were shelled on their heads. Okay, I also spent a few months in the shelter, but nothing happened to me. It's forgotten, as far as I'm concerned. But we always thought as a nation, as a group, we thought, oh, there are other people seeing this, and this is so bad, this is these atrocities and everything. And we thought someone will intervene now, someone will intervene now. And I think to myself, it's the same thing people in Gaza are thinking now, and people in Ukraine, someone will come, world will come. This is too bad to go on. No one's coming. No one's ever coming. And no one came to Croatia. The peace had to be established in a way somehow. And it was after a while, after 4 years. So there is no one coming. No one is coming to help. But you are still sitting in Germany, and I'm still sitting in UK or Croatia, or where I am at the moment, and thinking about, oh, there are so bad things going on. It's just a story. I will change anything. There were people thinking, "Oh, it's so horrible in former Yugoslavia," and there were people really they were concerned. They were concerned about it, but they didn't do anything. They had a story then to empathize, to identify, but their story was just a problem for them. They just felt bad, and nothing else happened.
Yep. So we all have
Apart from,
stories,
yeah,
and we all
we live
react
on
to
stories.
those stories. We react to
Yeah.
them.
Yes, yes,
And if that reaction is described as suffering, then it's because we believe the stories.
yes,
If it's actually, if we're actually experiencing it, if we're actually being shelled, or if we're actually having our freedoms restricted here now, that's a different thing.
yes,
If we're thinking
yes,
about something and it's a story, and then we react to that story, you know, that's self-induced suffering, isn't it?
yes. For
Yeah, I
myself
hope.
personally, I can only remember 2 times that it was really that I was in danger, that I was shelled on, and I had to run to the shelter. But it was 2 times. There were other places in Croatia that were shelled for months, really. And for these people, it was different. It was mostly a story for me. It didn't change anything, and it was a story for people. There was some help, but the help is not a lot. There is some help. There were people who went as refugees from Croatia and more from Bosnia after that, and they were received in Germany, especially a lot of them. So this was a kind of help, and humanitarian help does help. But being concerned doesn't help.
Yep.
So this is what you can do, and this is what helps.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean the classic is all the refugees in the world. You know, the countries are overrun with refugees everywhere,
Mhm.
but nobody even talks about fixing the reason why they're refugees. They only talk about closing the borders or restricting their intake or sending them back to or whatever, you know. But nobody talks about why are they refugees. We just go, oh, we're helpless to do anything about that.
Yeah. And this now I saw what stories I had and I have, and how much they helped, because I was on both sides of
Yeah.
the story as a real thing and the story as a story.
Yeah.
I think the funny thing is that, okay, that's just my imagination, but I guess like if my sister was present and she would listen to us, then she would judge us for being like
Yeah.
people who are in a situation where they can philosophize about things and so on, like a privileged situation.
Yeah.
And that it's like the easiest thing to say, anyway, you can't change anything. So, yeah. So then I noticed that this kind of triggers something in me, like because I don't want to identify with this cliche that other politically active people have with that, you know? But the other thing is that I guess, yeah, I mean, for other people, maybe this is like spirituality or something super not on the ground of reality. But on the other hand, I guess um, most conflicts in the world probably happen because people don't see those things. Like,
Oh,
I
look,
don't know.
there's not much of the world that doesn't see. I mean, on the news today, there's pictures of absolute destruction in Lebanon. You know, places that have been shot, and in Ukraine. You know, just places being razed to the ground. So if they say, "Oh, you see this, but you don't feel compassion for them," there's something wrong with you. So is it possible? Is it possible to recognise that these things are happening, and we're getting pictures into our living room of these things? That there is a level of sadness when we think about it, but it doesn't consume us to the point where we become sick. You know, we become stressed out, that we get PTSD from watching television. Right? There is a reality there that is, I can't do anything about that situation. I feel sad when I recognise that that is happening over there, but am I going to allow it to fill my body with stress hormones? That's stupid. But your sister, her body's full of stress hormones.
This is what I want to say. There is some sensible help, but feeling bad, feeling so extremely bad about it doesn't help.
No.
Yeah, the thing is that, and that's going to be my exercise for Christmas, I guess, is to accept her thinking of me that I'm a passive spiritual person or something like that, not being
Yeah.
so emotional about things like that. So that's like,
So that, hang
right.
on though, here's a trick, see? That's, you can imagine what she thinks about you, and you will react, you'll respond to what you imagine she thinks about you. You don't want her to
Yeah,
think bad
yeah.
things about you. Right?
Mm. Yeah,
The
or
thing
that's
is,
what I noticed, that I'm imagining that she will think that, and I feel inclined to
you react
respond
to it. Yes.
in
Yeah.
order not to, and so on. And yeah, I mean, it's
So the
not a
same
problem.
thing with you reacting to her. You know, what
Mm,
you see in her, you you don't know the details of what goes on in her. You've got a good idea. You imagine
mm,
that that is what's going on for her.
yeah,
But the reality is, if she's feeling upset, then you relate to that upsetness, not what she's
yeah.
upset about.
Mm,
The fact that she's upset you means that you will experience some compassion and some empathy. The mirror neurons in your
mm,
brain will say, yeah, you feel a little bit like that too because you're in her company and
yeah.
she's feeling that. But you don't have to get involved in why she's feeling that way. What she's
There are
feeling, what
several
she is
things.
feeling is, yeah,
Yeah, there are several things that I feel reactivity. And one thing is like when she's so excited about it, it gives me stress.
yes,
So now I started to just like be with that. Like, okay, so it causes a bit of stress in me. I can accept that.
Yep. And you investigate
Um,
that stress, yeah.
yeah. And
So
the other thing
one
is,
thing is that you will get the idea somewhere that because she is apparently not understanding where you're coming from, and
mm,
then there's a loss of connection,
yeah.
and that's something that you'll respond to.
Yeah, and I know that, okay, that's also a different story because she, like her boyfriend quit with her, and there are also some friendships that are, yeah, that she's like a bit sad about the contact not being as intense
Yep,
as
yep.
before. So in general, she feels a bit alone. And now she's with her family and with her quite radical views. And we as a family don't want to give her the feeling that, oh, come on, please stop it. But actually, I have to say that sometimes I do think that I just sometimes feel like, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night. Actually, I have to go to bed because I have to get up at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And now she's talking to me on the phone for 1 hour about Gaza and in this like super excited,
Yes, yeah,
emotional
I get that, yeah.
tone.
So
And then
is it
sometimes
something, do you need to set a boundary? That
I
could be
think
the thing,
so.
you know.
Yeah, I think so.
And how can you
I
do that
have to do that.
compassionately?
Yeah, at some point I have to do that because I can't listen to that like 2 hours before going to bed. So
Yes.
yeah.
So you might develop some skill in this, and you might say, I need to go to bed feeling good so that I can sleep
Mm,
properly and get benefit from
mm,
my sleep. So please, can you tell me a story about something good going on in the world?
mm,
And if she gets back into telling you about stuff bad going on in the world, you have to remind her, is there anything good going on in the world?
mm,
For example, now this is something you can do. I get a newsletter called Fix the News. So
mm,
jump on the internet and put in Fix the News into your browser, and they'll give you once a week, they'll give you 30 things that are really good happening in the world.
mm,
And then you can remind her of some of those things when she can't come up with something good because she's so focused on what's bad that she doesn't
mm,
she's missing the good stuff in the world.
mm.
You know, we've almost eradicated polio in the world. That's a good thing. You know,
Yeah,
there are a
I
lot of
think
good things going on.
I could try that. I mean, I can't know, but I'm a bit afraid of it being a provocation for her because
Yeah, yeah. But you've got to look after yourself. You can't go to bed stressed.
no, no.
No.
But the thing is that her version is like, ah, yeah, people always want to look away from that conflict just as our grandparents did.
Well,
And,
you can acknowledge that there is this stuff going on, but
mm,
that in your world you're not in a position to do anything to change that.
mm. Yeah, the thing is that
She thinks she's changing things, but she's not.
yeah,
She's getting herself excited.
no, actually, she's not active in any of those groups that are showing solidarity with the Palestinians, for example. Although she could do that, but she doesn't.
Mm.
And then I think, yeah, she gets like really angry when I'm not exactly of the same opinion. And that shows me that, yeah, that's like 100% selfing. I mean, if you, how can you how can you expect that everybody else will think the same things as you? So,
of course not. Yeah.
and then, yeah, what happens is that friends turn away from her because they are also a bit annoyed by this radical.
She may be addicted to this stuff. You know, she may be
Mm,
that she gets that good feeling about expressing that stuff.
I think so because she listens to podcasts and reads and all the
Yep.
newspapers, and then she sends us information, for example, in the morning, to this WhatsApp group. And then it's like my mom says, well, I do understand English, but it's like, yeah, like to listen to a podcast of 2 hours about a subject that I didn't choose in English, it's also a bit challenging,
Yeah,
or,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you couldn't tell her that she's alienating people by being this way.
Mm,
She can't help it. She can't help it. She's
uh,
unable to
she
change that. Yeah.
Yeah, but somehow I think that's going to come. I mean, I have to tell her that I'm not always able to talk about this subject with her,
Yes. Yes.
and
That's set those
not in
boundaries. Yeah.
that intensity, and that it's not like, I mean, mm, I think it would be, yeah. I
So,
mean, I don't talk to her about non-duality either, because it's not the thing that she's interested in,
no, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. But she doesn't offer you the same consideration. You know, she's going to give you what she's interested in, regardless of what you're interested in, or even in
Mm.
spite of the fact that you're not that interested in that, at least in the way she
Yeah,
presents it.
I mean, I share a lot of her opinions, but maybe not in that radical way,
Yeah.
and still keeping in mind that who am I to know? I mean, I don't, I just get information from certain media, and then I can like, there's a picture created which I can't have so much influence on, and it's just, I don't say it's not happening. I mean, it's not that, uh, yeah, of course, it's supposedly happening, but how it is happening and what this means and so on, that's like
Yeah.
something beyond my.
So you to look after yourself, you need to set boundaries, and maybe we
Mm,
set a boundary that says, "I refuse to talk about this within 2 hours of going to bed because
mm,
need to sleep well, and I can't if I go to bed worried."
mm,
Maybe frequently people you'll set boundaries with people, and they'll transgress them anyway. But you just have
mm,
to remind her you have to be strong in a gentle way that
mm,
that you have this boundary, that you've got to look after yourself, and that please, I'm happy to talk with you, but let's talk about good things before I go to bed,
mm.
not those things.
Yeah.
Mm. What do you think, Marius?
Um, yeah, it's interesting the conversation you're having. I find myself struggling with holding opinions like this anymore because, like you were just touching on, it's just we don't really know. There's so many sides or facets to view a topic like that. Um, so I just can't be bothered to um, care anymore. And I don't mean care like I don't care about those people that are suffering, but I don't care to be involved or involve myself in conversations like that anymore because they're pointless, in my opinion.
Yep, yep. And that's the big one in conversations. It's not that you don't care about the people in
Yeah.
those circumstances, but you don't care to have a conversation because all it does is get you in a stressed out situation if you do. So you don't.
Yeah.
You set boundaries. Yeah, good.
And also, you know, it's tough, I guess, if it's regarding family, but even that for me, I struggle kind of. I can't force myself to sit and listen to such things anymore. It doesn't work. I have to just get up and go somewhere else, or just
That's
set the
how
boundary right away.
you
Yeah,
extract, right? You extract yourself from that situation if it
yeah,
happens. Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that's a bit hard if it's family, if you know, because you don't want to offend them, you don't want to hurt them. So you know, how do you extract yourself? That's a trick, isn't it?
yeah. But I think you know, the way I see that also is at some point, hopefully, they need some kind of lesson to wake up from that bubble.
Yes.
And I just think that if we're going to keep um, perpetuating their bubble by indulging in their talk, I think we're doing them a disservice. So I think just being a bit more straight than normal everyday people will probably dare to be, I think we're actually doing them a favor in the long run.
Mm. Yeah.
Somebody got to take that responsibility.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
You can't tell her that though, Lennart. You can't say to her that I'm doing you a disservice by listening to you because you keep on to that.
Yeah, but I notice it's a bit like there's a role that is expected from me because people like know that I was taking part in that in the past. So yeah, I'm thinking about like, is it helpful just to not say anything in this situation? Like to just do like or something. I don't really know.
Well, that's still kind of encourages the continuation of it to an extent, doesn't it? But it takes courage for you to say, uh, I'm not going to do this. I can't involve myself in this." Right? So you might say to them, you know, I've discovered something. I've discovered that when I think about this stuff, I get myself in a really stressed out state. And so what I'm trying to do now is not think about it all the time. I'm putting it aside. I know it's there. I know I feel sad about it, but I know that continually talking about it and telling myself about it does not do this body any service.
Or maybe I could say like, I could just ask like, does this talking about this and being excited about it change anything? I
Well,
mean,
that's a bit confrontive, don't you think?
yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, we don't know your sister, so we don't know, but yeah, she might just get more excited, you know. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, when you talk to her, don't talk about her, talk about yourself.
Mm,
So you say, I have to look after myself, and when I talk about this stuff before I go to bed, I don't sleep well.
mm, mhm.
So you're not talking
Yeah,
to her, you're not telling her to shut up. Well, you kind of are, but you're not telling her in a way that
that's only one
confronts. Yeah.
situation, and she will call me in the morning.
Okay. Well, then oh, look, I've got to go to work. So
Yeah, no, maybe
I can give you 10 minutes and that's it. I don't.
it's like totally okay to say I don't feel like talking about this. I mean, isn't it?
Well, that may be true, but I would say it differently. I would say I know that when I talk about this, I get
Mm,
myself worked up, and I don't want to do that.
yeah. Yeah, that should be understandable.
Hmm.
And if she doesn't accept that, I mean, then it's obvious. I mean, I think she wouldn't accept that, but that just shows that she wants other people to share the same
Yeah.
view. That's a
Yep.
problem in itself, maybe. I mean,
Yep. Yep. Well, you could say to her, "Look, I'll give you 10 minutes to talk to me about that stuff, but you'll listen to me for 10 minutes, and I'll talk to you about non-duality."
mm, actually, I don't even have the desire to talk
No,
about
I
it.
know that. I know that. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, tell her you'll talk to her about Christianity, or you'll talk to her about something that will totally bore her.
yeah.
Make it up. Tell her you'll talk to her about Amazon bears or something. Yeah.
Mm.
Just make it an even trade-off. It's not. It's a bit one way at the moment. That's isn't it?
About Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that'll do it. She'll back off pretty quick then, I think. Yeah.
But I find so interesting to see how Leonard is changing, and he's forced to change his position among other people now, and how this plays out. And I would guess Marius already has this behind him, and I'm somehow also near me change and having to find a new position among other people who are used to old me somehow.
Yes, yeah. And of course, people who knew us before, they don't want us to change. So they put pressure on us to stay the way we used to be, yeah. But here's an interesting thing. So now I kind of took it back into myself, and I think, what do I do in those circumstances? I have got a friend who's a bit like her, and he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and he's got a whole lot of soapboxes that he gets up on and talks about, and when he does, they're the same stuff over and over again, kind of thing. And a lot of the time, I just listen. I'm tolerant, but I do confront him sometimes, and he's okay though. He'll stop if I confront him. But with people who are not quite so radical, I find it really interesting. I'll listen to them and ask them questions that burrow down into it, right? And so I'm behaving like I'm very interested, and I am interested. Oh yeah, why do you think that? Isn't there something else going on there as well? So I'll inquire. I'll ask them questions, and I amuse myself with those questions. But it also puts them in a situation where they're not just repeating lines to me. They've actually got to consider what they're saying. So it's just, I mean, I've done this for as long as I can remember. I used to be so self-conscious with people until I discovered that actually they're all very interesting if I ask them questions. It's never about me. I turn it away from me. I turn it onto them by asking them, tell me more. Give me more details. What? How could it be different? What could happen to make it other than what it is? And they have to think about that, because if you just let them talk, they're just going to say the same thing. They're on a soapbox and they're going to go round and round in circles. So yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong. I agree with you. It's really wrong. Now, what can happen to change it? Can you do anything to change it? Does somebody else need to do something to change it? What can happen to make it different? Ask them to give you those details. That throws them sometimes.
I also just want to point out, or at least in my experience, that I think a part of this apparent journey is being okay with people dropping out of your lives. And obviously, that's not as easy with a sister or somebody in your family. But even that, I think, you know, you need to be ready to let go of if if it kind of doesn't go anywhere, if it keeps you in a state of selfing. Um, I noticed in myself uh, very much, even sometimes now, but very much before, that when I was with people who knew me in a certain way, um, I kind of slid back into that character. Uh, and I could even see myself do it while while it was happening, but it was just something happening. So for me, I went through a process, I think, where I was just more and more content with, okay, if these people disappear from my life because I'm not okay with just putting up with speaking about stuff that I don't care about, or like obviously I can be there for people if they need somebody to talk to, but if it's something like on and on and on and we just don't match anymore, okay, then it's okay to let them go. And I think that's a big part of this journey. Yeah.
And I think parallel to that is we need less and less affirmation from other people. So it's okay to let them go because we don't have the need anymore. We're more fulfilled in ourself, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it would be like interesting to delve more into this feeling like now my sister thinks this or that about me. I mean, I can't know this anyway, or there's no control about that anyway. So, um, I mean, yeah, I guess um, it would also be okay for me to think that she sees me as a super passive, non-political person. I mean, it's okay with me.
Yeah, there's another thought arises here too, and that is that before waking up, we have all these expectations, and one of those is, you know, the pop genre suggests that we can get more Zen like, right? So that's something that people will recognise as an idea, and so you even though it's kind of a funny way to put it, you can say, oh, look, I'm trying to be more Zen. And so then they get this idea, and you can even say, well, you know, I meditate now as well. You know, things that just give them an idea that your focus is in a different direction to what it used to be or what they're in. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, when my mom starts to get really excited about what this person did again and so on, then sometimes I can tell her, like, could you please lower your voice a bit and talk a bit slower because it really stresses me now.
Yep. The way,
And
yeah.
then she gets aware of it and she gets a bit calmer. And yeah, but basically, I mean, I think it's okay to say that you feel stressed by someone being so excited about a subject and talking without a point and a comma.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because usually that talk does accompany a louder voice and a non-stop, no spaces. It's a monologue. Yeah.
Also, I think it's worth contemplating if you can be okay. Like you had a certain way of thinking your sister sees you, Lennart, or would see you. But chances are it's not like that at all, like how you think that she thinks about you. So, like, I think it would be more productive to maybe delve into, can I be okay with anyone viewing me as anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, in case of my sister, I'm noticing now that it may have to do a bit with my sister and me. Like we never were so close, but since I came back from Argentina, which is like a bit more than a year now, we have a very close and affectionate relationship. And that's kind of the first time ever in our lives. So maybe that's why I feel like a bit, yeah, cautious about those things. But then, I mean, I also have to accept if I set a boundary and that just destroy the harmony, then it's just going to be like that. That also should be okay.
Yeah, because it won't ever be harmony if you have to be something else than what you are, right? So if in order for you guys to have harmony in your relationship, you have to kind of cover up a part of you,
Yeah, pretend
or
to be something different. Yeah.
yeah. So it's better, in my opinion, to kind of let her see exactly who you are and then grow the relationship from there.
Yeah, and there is even still a part of me who is a bit afraid of her because she can be very radical and she can get a bit aggressive as well. I mean, not like physically, but yeah, I think she would be a bit like, to speak in Pernille's uh, yeah, ideas, it would be the aggressive bully, I guess. So sometimes maybe passive aggressive as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a trick. The aggressive bully wants to manipulate you, whereas it may not be that's the case for her. She just wants to let it all out. She wants
Yeah, but for
to,
example, she was always the one who, um, after a conflict, she would not talk to you for,
well, okay, yeah.
yeah.
That
So
sounds like, yeah,
I could never do that. I would not like endure this. Then I would rather say sorry. It was my fault or something, which is then maybe rather the chameleon.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's not good either, like to always say, oh, it's all my fault. I mean, I wouldn't do that anymore. It's just like I can say sorry, but I don't have to explain anything.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Um, but yeah, there is a bit of this, like, don't say that now because that then she could explode or something like that.
Yep,
And
yep,
that's not such a good base for a good relationship either,
yep,
anyway.
yep. Well, you could explain to her these things are important to you, that you want a good relationship with her, and that the way she is with you all the time jeopardizes that relationship. Now they've got to be careful. You can talk about yourself, not about her. You know, that's the trick. Always about yourself.
Yeah, but I just noticed that that's maybe rather my imagination, because now I remember that there was already a situation when I told her, no, it's not possible. I think I told that once. It was like after the separation, and my mom was visiting after I had already have I had already had a visitor, so like 1 week of visiting, and I felt like yeah, my mom is already, it's like a bit difficult for me to be
Yep.
in my own space with my mom, and now my sister also wants to come and there is not enough space and so on. So I said no to my sister, or I explained to her like, yeah, I would like to welcome you with open arms, but I'm not able to do that at the moment because I actually feel like I need
You need to
space
recharge.
for
Yeah.
myself. So it would not turn out very well, probably. And at first, she was really angry and didn't talk to me anymore. But then she also understood. So I
Right.
guess it's not all that dramatic as it could
You
be
can
in my
imagine.
imagination.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're honest with her, you'll say, "Look, I'm really trying to change from how I used to be, and I'm wanting to get more Zen-like. I really value calmness and peace, and sometimes when, yeah, so yeah, all right. So straight away, I'm talking about her again. Sometimes, so instead of saying her, you say, when people get really excited with me, I find it difficult to cope with, and then if it happens for very long, I have to go and recharge. I find it really difficult to constantly be with people like that. So you're not talking about her again. You're talking about your reaction to that stuff. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Relationships are always tricky, and more so with family than with other people. Yeah.
Can I ask a stupid question?
There's no such thing as a stupid question, but ask anyway. Yeah.
I don't know. Leonard was saying his mom was visiting, and after 7 days it was too much. Is it normal, or is it just usual but not normal that you cannot be yourself, your fully free self in front of your closest family? Is it normal? Is it this for everyone? I know it's for teenagers. Teenagers don't want to have their parents around. But is it normal to persist forever?
Yeah. Well, put it this way, quite unintentionally, your family will trigger you. So anything that you've got, any shadow stuff in you, any remaining identification, they will trigger it, not intentionally, just by being themselves, right? Because there's a huge history there with your family, and not only is there that history, but there's also a kind of a permission to be emotional, I guess. So we're much more inclined to be angry or whatever as a response to our family. Yeah. So it's an old saying that Ram Dass had that was just brilliant. He said, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family. And of course, you'll get triggered for sure, until there's nothing left to trigger. And I don't know that will ever happen. So, yeah. No, so it's very common. And so those people that have a calm relationship with their parents after 7 days either are very, very awake and have got rid of all that stuff, or they're suppressing. They're just not accepting what's going on. They're pretending. So who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
guess
because
for me at that moment it was like, for example, for many years in my life, I had this thing. I don't know if you can call this catastrophizing, like imagining things to
Yeah.
have to not happen in a good way, and then like you jump to conclusions, and it already feels like it's
Yeah.
going to be like that anyway. And that is what my mom is doing a lot. And also this thing of wanting to control everything and plan every detail and so on. And I think, yeah, I really had to unlearn that. I really had to learn not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was something that I felt like, yeah, it's not such a long time that I now don't do that anymore. And it's, how do you call this when you have three balls
Yeah,
and
juggling.
jungle? Yeah, when you just learned how to jungle, and then somebody throws like another two
Yeah,
balls at
yeah,
you or something. So
yeah. Tricky.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was somewhat
Yeah.
exhausting. Like,
So as you change and you get back with your parents and they treat you like you used to be. They almost put pressure on you to be the way you used to be. They'll talk to you like you're still a child. Well,
Especially my mom, who now lives in the world of her own.
yes, yeah. And she remembers the way it used to be, maybe. Or she behaves the way it used to be, regardless of what her memory is like. Yeah, yeah.
She gave me a moment this week. They had some altercation, my parents, and it might have been even something physical, which is a very difficult situation for me now. I really don't know what to do. And I don't know. But there was a moment when she pushed me into this situation, in this feeling of me having to, oh, it's so hard to say. She she was a kind of, I don't know, because of her trauma and everything, she was a very difficult parent, controlling and everything. And I always had to, like, when there was a discussion between my parents, I always had the feeling that I am somehow responsible to resolve it. And they gave me this moment this week, and I was just aware of the moment and of the sensation. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm so grateful you're still here to give me these moments so I don't have to remember them, to work with them. But they are here. And I just recognized the moment. There wasn't a lot of time to work with it then. But there was a sensation, there was a thought, and I thought, no, I'm not responsible to resolve anything between you. Even if you two have a difficult life now, even though I know we have to think my mom will have to go into care at some point. Is it now? Will it be later? I don't know. And there was this feeling of me having to make a decision. But then later on, I just understood I don't have to make a decision. I can, because I'm not the part of the situation. They too are the part of the situation. My dad will have to make a decision.
Mm.
He will have to say it's too difficult for me. She will have to go into care.
Yep. You may even
Not
recognize a pattern that a lot of your life or a lot of your adult life they treated you as the referee or you in the middle, so they expect
somehow
you to do something about it.
it wasn't. No, it wasn't never explicit. But she was passive aggressive. She was very passive aggressive. After every discussion they had, she would go to the bathroom and cry. And I felt so guilty. I had to be a parent for my parents. So,
Yeah.
and I resent it now. And this is something I can work with now. So they gave me a moment and I thought, it's not mine.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
not mine. Walking on eggshells, not to disturb her. She was very easy to offend. She's so offensive. She was never ready to hear any kind of criticism, even if she did something. I remember discussions between us. She scolding me for something. I was maybe a teenager or something. I did something. I don't know what teenagers do. And she would scold me. And I thought, I said to her, I made a mistake. Didn't you ever made a mistake? And she said to me, no, I never made a mistake. Oh my God. So she was really a difficult parent. And now I have to deal with her being a difficult person. Well, the moment wasn't mine, but I felt it. And okay, I was grateful to have it
Yes. Yeah.
because it's there to resolve.
Yeah. You know, you're right. You've got it's a great opportunity for you to
Yeah.
get out of
I
hole.
just might regret that I didn't use it as I should have. But
Oh,
on the other hand, I
you,
did recognize it's okay. And
you're doing it now. You don't have to do it at the time necessarily. You know, you just even afterwards, if you recognise that situation, the simple recognition of it is enough to change it.
So I was never allowed to say what I think in front of her because she would have been offended. There wasn't a freedom to be with her. There was never a freedom to be with her.
Oh, yes. It
And
was all conditional. So you had to be a certain way to be with her. And a way
yes.
she decided, yeah. And she didn't even realise that, of course.
No,
Yeah.
no. And now the cat has to be.
Poor cat.
Yeah. So it was funny. It was funny. Well, I won't be the one to make a decision. This is also something I got out of the situation now. And also letting go, because before I would have thought, I would have worried a lot about what decision will I make? What decision will I make? And now I think the decision will make itself. Either they will burn the house down or something will happen.
Nothing will happen, yeah. Yeah.
Our neighbor literally burned the house down, so it might happen as well, but I hope not.
Yes, one would hope that it's not going to be something too painful.
Yeah. But there will be painful times. I mean, losing parents is always painful, and it will be painful, and I will live through it.
And even the decision to go into a nursing home, it will take some event to precipitate that. It won't just be a decision that'll come out of nowhere.
Yes. Yes.
As soon as she's unsafe, that's the classic one, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, this physical part of this discussion on Thursday, I saw it made my dad think a little bit about it. He didn't want to before, but he thought for 5 minutes about it, which is a new thing for him.
So you almost gave him back some responsibility.
I don't know who's telling the truth. I talked to one, I talked to the other, but they're just, I mean, my mom, she makes up stuff because she makes up stuff. She doesn't know what reality is anymore. But he's also trying to direct the story his way a little bit because it was very unpleasant. So I don't know who's telling the truth, and I will never know.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, really.
It doesn't matter. No.
Yeah.
No. It wasn't very bad this time, and what will happen next time, we'll see.
Yep.
I see myself changed. Otherwise, I would have been crazy after this now.
Yeah, yeah. That's good.
Calling every care home in the, near our house.
Yeah. How have you been, Liam?
Well, I've been well. I haven't been here for a while. We moved to Portugal, so that was a big change. So far things are going well. It's nice to see everybody.
So are you getting triggered much these days?
I would say, yeah, I mean, the triggers are mostly memories, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's really what the triggers are these days.
And how do you respond to that when you get triggered? What's your inclination?
Well, I would say there are a few different things. I mean, one of the things is I realized like it's an internal struggle. It's not against anybody. It's not against anybody other than
Mm.
it's internal.
Right. So is that different for you? Is that a different response than you used to have?
Well, I think that there was probably a time when I thought that I was actually angry at the person, right? But it's angry, the person's not there, right?
Mm.
So it's anger I mean, it's aversion coming up, and it's a sort of a struggle against, I mean, what I notice is that it's creating division. When I look at what's going on in the mind, I think, I mean, realizing that doesn't always help. I mean, I just try to bring compassion to it. But sometimes it tends to be the energy of anger, it just tends to be very energizing.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So sometimes, like, I'll notice if I'm meditating and then I think of something that causes anger, like it's like I want to jump up or something, or like lash out with my arm. Yeah.
So do you remember, do you get that it's never about what actually comes up, it's always about what triggers that to come up, what's underneath it, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're meditating and the inclination is to jump up, it's about stopping meditating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For some reason or other, whatever's underneath that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get sucked into the content of what comes up, and that way we don't see what it is that's stimulated it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you also recognize that memories, the way the brain works, that memories are never a complete scene or event that's stored? That when we have a memory, it's always comes from different parts of the brain and we put it together. So every memory is a creation. And that's how they can be different to what actually happened without us realizing it. We always create our memories and they change.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm not under the illusion that I am remembering something that actually happened. So it's all.
Yep. And it doesn't matter whether it actually happened or what, because we react to it the same, whether it's a pure fantasy or it's a memory of that part of it was what actually happened or whatever. We still react as if it were absolutely real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time we get triggered, that's an opportunity. to clean out something.
Like a purification of sorts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to fix it, to be, you know, the skill in using that tool is to just simply be curious and open to what might present itself. You know, so we're not looking for an end result. We're not looking to not feel the anger. What we're looking to do is to see what might be underneath the anger. Yeah. And not actually come to a conclusion about that. Simply be curious and open to it. So even whatever we see is only ever going to be part of it, not the full thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just for your interest, I don't know whether I mean, it's perfectly fine to turn up any time during these meetings and leave at any time as well. But we actually started tonight 2 hours and 20 minutes ago.
Oh, you did? Why
Yeah.
do I'm wondering why I have, I might be confused about the times, partly because.
Time zones are really weird, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I moved. There's a 5 hours difference from where I was, so I probably didn't update the times right. So on. Okay.
So tonight is 9 p.m. Sydney time, Eastern Australian time, Eastern Australian daylight time at the moment. But just put in Sydney if you're using one of those time converters.
Okay.
Sydney, Australia, and that'll give it. So, yeah. Because we're getting a bit close to the end right now. So.
Oh, sure. Don't. It's fine. I just thought I'd check in, but I did think it had started 20 minutes ago.
Right,
So
right. No, you're 2 hours late then. Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah. So did you come with the idea of did something to discuss, something that you wanted to talk about?
I didn't have anything particular. I mean, you asked me about something that I was happy to talk about, but I didn't come thinking, oh, I need to talk about something.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, sure.
I was just going to listen.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I guess we'll call it quits fairly soon, eh? Unless anybody's got anything else they want to discuss, bring up. No, okay. Well, we'll say good night, and I'll be back here in about 7 hours for the Feta group in the morning. Yeah. But anyway, well, see you all later. Good one.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Vince.
Yeah, thank you.